Good. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Lisa Hepfner, the MP for Hamilton Mountain. I'd like to start by thanking the executive board and staff here at LiUNA for the roundtable discussion that we had earlier this morning. And it was really great to have this conversation with my colleagues, Deputy Prime Minister Freeland, Minister Tassi. And I know that we all learned a lot today from the tour of the training facility. We particularly enjoyed the demonstrations. The mini excavator demonstration was particularly attractive. You know, that's a really fun toy for anyone to operate. It makes the trades very attractive to people, and apparently women are particularly good at operating machinery like a mini excavator. So as I mentioned, I represent the riding of Hamilton Mountain. It's long been a bastion for the strength and solidarity of unions. And before becoming an MP, of course, I reported the news in this region for more than 20 years, so I really understand how important unions like LiUNA, LiUNA? I'm having trouble with that today. But I know how important LiUNA and other unions are to our communities. And today we got even more insight into how unions make our communities better. So thank you to Joe and Nick and Victoria and Anthony and Ricardo for these conversations that we had today and for the tour of your gorgeous new facility. And a special shout out to Victoria over there. She's truly become a powerhouse for women in the construction industry, which is so important because we know that that is a key way we can get more people, which are sorely needed, into construction, is to make it more accessible to women, like the women we have here training at the facility today. And Victoria also, I'll just mention, not only in construction, she's really been a powerhouse for all sorts of women in our community. Women's Shelter was recently named in her honor in Hamilton. So enough about Victoria. Almost as well known is her father, Joe Mancinelli, who I have also known for many years, thanks to my previous role, and his long and effective leadership as International Vice President and Regional Manager of Central and Eastern Canada here at LiUNA. He has helped catapult LiUNA into one of the strongest and most well-respected unions in the province, if not the country. He's a leader who works collaboratively with government to achieve real benefits for workers, like the labor mobility tax credit that we managed to get into the most recent budget by our eminent finance minister. So without further ado, please give a warm welcome to Joe Mancinelli.
Thank you, Lisa. Lisa happens to be my member of Parliament on Hamilton Mountain as well, and very pleased to be introduced by her as well. It's a pleasure to be here with Finance Minister and Deputy Prime Minister Freeland, Minister Tassi as well, and a number of folks from the different ministries, and of course from LiUNA, Ricardo Percy, the manager of LiUNA Local 837, which this jurisdiction is a part of, Hamilton, Niagara, Kitchener-Waterloo, Cambridge as well. Anthony Primerano, our Director of Government Affairs, is with us, and Victoria Mancinelli, who is a Public Relations Strategic Partnerships Director as well for LiUNA as well, and a number of instructors that are here at our training center, and our trainees, that some of them are here behind us as well. Training is a very important part of LiUNA. It's one of the pillars of our organization, a very important part of our organization as we train the future workers for our country, Canada. LiUNA is the largest construction union in the country, at about 140,000, 150,000 members across the country, and their families depend on them coming back work safely at the end of the day. So safety training becomes one of the important parts of our training here at our training centers. I know that our ministers had an opportunity to view our confined spaces unit and our rescue unit as well. Very important for our members to learn all of the safety features on the construction sites. Unfortunately, we still have fatalities on construction. We still have injuries in construction, but they are being reduced dramatically because of training centers such as this. This is the newest training center for LiUNA in North America. We have training centers in every major city right across North America. I'm the international vice president for LiUNA and have had the pleasure of seeing a number of training centers right across the United States and Canada. This is a new state-of-the-art facility with some exceptional pieces of equipment. That 50% of the costs of this equipment have been provided by the federal government under the UTIP program. We're very, very pleased with the funding that we get from the federal government on a number of pieces of equipment, but also on apprenticeship programs as well that are funded by the federal government as well. Most importantly, and I know that Lisa mentioned it as well, Minister Freeland introduced the mobility tax, labor mobility tax, where our members that now travel can now write off the expenses, their travel expenses and housing expenses while they're away from home. And this is very important because corporations were able to do this, and now our members are able to do it. So thank you, Minister Freeland and the government, because this is an outstanding achievement, something that we've been lobbying for 30 years. And finally, we got it through the last budget. So very, very happy with this achievement for our members as well. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome all of you to our facility. We're very pleased to have all of you here. And I'm going to pass it back to Lisa. Thank you.
Joe, once again, thank you for your leadership. 44 years at LiUNA, and extraordinary growth in the union that we've seen. So thank you very much. You know, journalism is really good training ground for politics, not only because you get used to public speaking, but because you spend your days out talking to people and getting to know people and really understanding the issues. And I think that's, you know, when you're faced with negotiating NAFTA or, you know, trying to fight unfair steel tariffs or, you know, writing national budgets is really good training ground. And you can tell because that is the background that we have in our amazing Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister. Please welcome Chrystia Freeland.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for that kind introduction, Lisa, and the shout out to journalism. I really agree, actually. Listening to people is something that journalists need to do, and it's something politicians should do. Alors, merci beaucoup. Je tiens d'abord à souligner que les terres sur lesquelles nous sommes réunis font partie du territoire traditionnel des Hatiwadaronks, des Haudenosaunee et des Anishinaabe, incluant les Mississauga de la Première Nation Crédit. So it is so wonderful to be here today and to be here with my friends, my fellow former journalist friend, and really outstanding member of parliament and representative for this community, Lisa, and my wonderful cabinet colleague, Filomena Tassi. So thank you both for being here, and thank you both for representing this community so effectively and energetically. And I am really happy to be here at LiUNA Local 837 and to have had a chance to meet with union leaders, with union workers, with people being trained here, apprentices, because I really believe and understand that working people, that union members, are at the heart of the Canadian economy. We need you. You are building Canada, and you absolutely deserve and will have our government's support. Notre économie s'est remise de manière remarquable de la récession du Covid. Notre PIB réel est supérieur de 2,2% à ce qu'il était avant l'arrivée du pandémie. Nous avons connu la plus forte relance de l'emploi au sein du G7 et notre taux de chômage est le plus bas jamais enregistré. That robust economic recovery is in no small part thanks to so much hard work by union workers, like the people we've met and who we see here today, and like LiUNA members from across Hamilton and Niagara. And in the months and years ahead, our country is going to be counting on organized labor to continue playing an essential role in helping our economy grow from coast to coast to coast. And it is in recognition of that reality that our government has introduced programs like, yes, the labor mobility tax deduction. We know that skilled union workers are in high demand right across the country. The labor mobility tax credit will help cover the costs for skilled tradespeople of moving to where the jobs are, and it will put more money in the pockets of skilled workers. And I do want to give a shout out here to Joe and to other union leaders who, during my pre-budget consultations for the spring budget, they were very eloquent and very articulate in explaining to me why the labor mobility tax credit made sense, why, frankly, it would create fairness and a level playing field and give blue-collar workers access to the same treatment that white-collar workers already have. Those were excellent points. They were persuasive arguments. I'm really glad I listened and that we put this tax credit in the budget. Now, construction is booming across Canada. There are more cranes in the sky in Toronto right now than there are in any other city in North America. And the construction industry will only continue to grow as our government works with municipalities, provinces, not-for-profits, the private sector to double the number of new homes we build over the next 10 years. Union workers must be at the forefront of that important effort. So whether it's the labor mobility tax deduction, doubling our investment in the union training and innovation program, or making sure that union workers are at the table as Canada navigates a changing economy and changing labor market, we are going to continue supporting workers because we know they are building Canada. Our economy, our society depends on them and on their unions. Something else that we've talked about today and that I know is really important to LiUNA and other unions across the country is immigration. Canada's willingness to welcome new Canadians is a huge economic competitive advantage for our country. And one of our country's strengths today and for generations has been new Canadians coming here and getting good union jobs when they arrive. Our government is investing heavily in bringing to Canada more of the skilled workers that our economy needs. And we know that they will play a critically important role in growing our economy in the years to come. And we look forward to continuing to work with LiUNA and other trade unions on doing just that. I got some very specific, really, really helpful advice on how we can do this better. So thanks for the conversation today. Despite all of this, despite Canada's strong economic recovery, and despite the fact that so many workers here and across Canada have good union jobs today, I know that today is a challenging time for many Canadian workers. Inflation is a global phenomenon. It's a lingering result of the COVID recession. It's been exacerbated by Vladimir Putin's barbaric invasion of Ukraine and by China's COVID-0 policies. But the fact is that Canadian families, Canadian workers, are feeling the bite of that global inflation. Every time they buy groceries, every time they fill up their tank with gas. And so our government is here for Canadians, just as we've been here for Canadians, and Canadians have been here for each other as we got through the COVID pandemic and the COVID recession. That's what we're doing now as we face this new challenge of elevated inflation. And we're doing that by having a plan, by working together, and by supporting each other. Our affordability plan includes an enhanced Canada Workers Benefit that will put up to $2,400 more into the pockets of low-income Canadian families starting this year. We're cutting childcare fees by an average of 50% across Canada by the end of this year. Old age security for seniors 75 and over goes up by 10% this month. That's almost $800 more for seniors this year. Dental care, starting with children under 12 this year, and a $500 payment to help people who rent and are struggling with housing affordability this year. And of course, key supports, key parts of Canada's social welfare net are indexed to inflation. The Canada Child Benefit, the GST credit, the Canada Pension Plan, Old Age Security, and the Guaranteed Income Supplement. For a working couple here in Grimsby with an income of $45,000 and a child in daycare, this affordability plan taken together could mean roughly an additional $7,600 on top of existing benefits, an additional $7,600 this year, more than 16% of their annual income. A senior with a disability in Hamilton could benefit from over $2,500 more this year than she received last year. Now, these measures were part of the fiscally responsible budget that we tabled in April. They are already accounted for in Canada's AAA-rated fiscal framework. But for the Canadians who need this support the most, for the most vulnerable among us, seniors, low-wage workers, families with children, people facing housing affordability challenges, these are targeted measures that represent new money that they didn't receive last year and that will make life more affordable at exactly the right time. This is a difficult economic moment for countries around the world, and it's certainly a challenging time for Canada as well. But thanks in large part to trade unions and to union workers, like the great people I've had a chance to talk to here today, there is no country better placed in the whole world than Canada to navigate the bumpy road ahead. So thank you all very much, and I'll turn it over to Filomena for a moment, and then we're going to answer your questions if you have any.
Well, thanks, Chrystia. And before I give a formal thank you to you, I just have to take this opportunity to thank Joe Mancinelli and your team. Joe, you know, I'm proud of the work that our government has done on the labor file, and a lot of that success has been a part of, as a result of the collaboration that you have had with our government. And I have been fortunate to be one of those people that have had many discussions with you and your team with respect to what workers really need and look for, and your focus on keeping them safe while at the same time ensuring that they are treated in a fair and respectful way and getting projects done has been a true inspiration. And the collaboration has resulted in things like, at the beginning, when we were elected in 2015, repealing 525 and 377, the anti-union legislation, And that was motivated through your input. And so I thank you for that. Anne has been mentioned, finally getting across the finish line, the mobility tax deduction, which a credit, actually was asked for a credit, we actually got it as a deduction. And that was through the input that you have given, and it's a part of the fairness that you have advocated from the beginning. The training center here and seeing the people behind us who have graciously agreed to be at this press conference, who are in training this afternoon, getting the skills that they need in a safe and respectful environment is just so important and something that our government wants to continue to support. So we're really happy to be able to support through UTIP and other things, equipment and the great work that you are doing at LiUNA. So to you and your team, I want to thank you very much. And now I want to formally thank Chrystia Freeland. Chrystia, I just have to say to you, it is an absolute honor to work beside someone who is so dedicated, bright, compassionate, and down to earth. You have experienced huge success, but that hasn't been through luck. It's through your dedication, commitment, and the reason why you've put yourself forward to serve Canadians. You listen every step of the way. Second to the Prime Minister, you're probably one of the busiest in Cabinet. And I have to tell you on a personal note, sharing personal stories, when I reach out to Chrystia, I get an answer almost immediately. Your ability to listen to people, to engage, and then to deliver results for Canadians has always been couched in compassion, in really wanting to serve and do whatever we can to make life easier for Canadians and to make it more fulfilling and to give them the supports that they need. And you have just ushered us through one of the most difficult challenges that this country has faced in decades, COVID. And you have done that with brilliance, with compassion, and with grace. And so I thank you for the work that you have done for Canadians. I thank you for your mentorship with me as a caucus member and in Cabinet. And I thank you for being with us today because we know how valuable your time is, but we also know that this engagement is so important to you, which is why you are here, and it's why you get it right, because you listen and you listen with compassion and with intelligence and then come up with solutions that work for Canadians. So on behalf of this community and my beloved Hamilton, I thank you for your time and being with us today and for the work that you have done to get us to this point. Thanks so much. Sorry, I forgot my last thing I was supposed to do is to hand it over now to Adrian, who I believe is your press secretary, who is going to monitor the Q&A.
Yeah, and thank you, students, for joining us. It was nice talking to you earlier today. And say who you want to answer.
Hi, Deputy Freeland. Jason Gaidola with CHCH News. Recently, we've seen a month-to-month decline in home prices. Are you concerned at all that this may have an effect on new builds heading into the future, and why not?
That's a great question, and we actually spent a lot of time with Joe and his team talking about the housing industry, the housing sector, talking about how Canada needs to build more homes. We're a growing country. We need to have a growing supply of homes for Canadians. I am not going to comment on, specific price movements in the housing market. But let me say two things. First of all, I want Canadians to feel very confident in the safety, stability, and strong regulatory requirements in our financial sector. We saw that in 2008 when Canada came through a global financial crisis in really much better shape than any other industrialized economy. And, you know, I'm not going to lie to people. This is a challenging economic time in the world. There is a lot of turbulence. There are a lot of global factors that we have no control over. And we're feeling that. We're feeling that at the grocery store. We're feeling that in our housing market. But I want people to be very confident in the safety and stability of our financial sector. In terms of new construction, that is an absolute priority for our government. There are a lot of challenges when it comes to housing in Canada. It's a big, complicated problem. But at the end of the day, the key is we need to build more homes. We're going to do it. The current environment with interest rates rising definitely poses some challenges. But you know what? There were also challenges in the previous prevailing environment. And what we need to do is have close collaboration between the federal government, between municipalities, and it is great to have the mayor here with us now, between the province, between not-for-profits, between developers, between unions, and we will get more homes built.
Sticking with interest rates, Bank of Canada is expected to raise it possibly next week, which in turn obviously raises mortgage rates. We saw a change last year in the stress test. Do you still think it's necessary to have it now?
Oh, when it comes to the stress test, that was a decision taken by me, by the Ministry of Finance, and I felt confident it was the right decision at the time, and I feel even more confident today that it was the right decision. That wasn't an easy decision, and increasing the stress test on mortgages always leaves some people disappointed. But I think today, as people are seeing interest rates rising, and as they are seeing more pressure on their mortgage payments, it's a moment to look back and say, you know what? It's really a good thing that we have a prudent, cautious, carefully regulated mortgage market. That's going to help a lot of Canadians get through this current economic cycle.
Hi, Minister Freeland. My name is Alexandra Holick from CTV National News. My question for you is, why has your government kept the ArriveCan app in place after making changes at the border?
You know what? Let me start by saying, and you know, Canadians, we believe in modesty and humility as a national virtue, and I think that is a good thing. And certainly, I don't think anyone would argue that it's a problem to have political leaders who are too modest or too humble. I think people might have a problem going in the other direction. But I do want to say one thing that Canadians should be quietly proud of, collectively, all of us together. And that is how we have gotten through COVID so far. There was a study published either last week or 10 days ago that compared 11 comparable rich industrialized countries and how they did in COVID. And Canada was second from the top. Only Japan, which is in a very different environment, did better than us. And to put some numbers behind that, if we had had the same level of mortality in Canada that they had in the United States, very, very close to us, 70,000 more Canadians would have died. Think about that for a minute. We would have lost 70,000 people, our parents, our grandparents. So I think overall, like, yes, the measures that we all endured during COVID were unpleasant and were difficult. And I don't know, maybe you want to call it the COVID recession hangover that we're getting through right now is not pleasant. But let's not lose sight of the fact that by and large, these measures worked and they saved 70,000 people. The ArriveCan app was one of a suite of measures that were part of this highly effective COVID response. Now, the environment today is different. You know, all of us are here, we're not wearing masks. We're living in a reopened national economy. And so as we go, we constantly need to look at which measures are appropriate and which are not, and constantly make modifications and adapt. And that is exactly what our government is doing and will continue to do.
So many mayors have called for the removal of the ArriveCan app just to make it easier for cross-border travel. So is this something your government is considering?
As I said, nothing is off the table. All measures are constantly being evaluated. But I do, in addition to pointing out that the measures that we have had in place, that we had in place at peak COVID, they were unpleasant, they were not nice, but they really worked and they saved 70,000 lives. And what I also want to point out is COVID is still here. We are seeing in some parts of the country some resurgences of COVID. So we need to remember that we may not be through this yet. And we need to, even as we need to be prepared to loosen things up, we also need to be prepared to be prudent and careful going forward. So that's the balancing act our government is going to strike, constantly reviewing things. Everything is up for discussion. And that's how we've done it so far. That's what we're going to continue to do.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Minister. Michael Cole, CBC News. There has been a lot of criticism of the comments you made yesterday when you were asked about the price of gasoline. You talked about climate change, and your critics are suggesting you're not concerned with how the struggles that people are facing right now. How do you respond to that?
I respond by saying that's completely false. Of course, I am concerned, and I think everyone in the government is concerned about the affordability challenges that Canadians face. And we really understand that when it comes to the cost of living, people are feeling pressure in three principal ways: the price of gas, the price of groceries, and the price of housing. So we are really aware of it. We are really aware that it is hard. What I will also say is that I believe that the energy crisis that the world is going through right now absolutely does mean that we need to focus on the green transition. As a country, it's something we're investing in, and we need to continue to invest in it. That is the right strategy for today and for the future, and we're going to continue to do that too.
Okay, and one other question, if I may. And do you have any reaction to Patrick Brown being kicked out of the leadership race for the Conservative Party of Canada?
I really think that's a question for the Conservative Party of Canada.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for coming, and sorry that we started the press conference late. Joe and his team had a lot of really interesting things to show us, and there were lots of interesting people to talk to, but I apologize for making you guys wait around. Thanks a lot. Have a good day.